You know that feeling when the world just stops, like someone just hit mute on reality? Your heartbeat gets louder than everything and all the noise of the office disappears. That's exactly how it felt when Mila from HR slid that stupid paper across her IKEA desk. 60%. That's how much they decided to cut my salary just like that. I looked at the number again, thinking maybe I read it wrong. 60%. Gone. I had to cry. Not there anyway. I actually smiled like a goddamn machine. I said, thank you. I'll need 24 hours to consider the offer. Like I was some executive calmly weighing a business decision, not a single mom who'd just been gutted. The crying came later, alone in my car, parked 3 levels down in the company garage. I sobbed so hard the windows fogged up. Because how do you process being told you're worth less than half overnight? My name's not important, but let's just say I gave 9 years of my life to a place that ended up treating me like I was disposable. I'm a single mom. My son Arlo is 10 now, sharp, funny, allergic to peanuts, and has asthma that scares the life out of me sometimes. Every month I had to juggle his medication bills with the mortgage and groceries, praying nothing unexpected came up. When I first joined Stratic Systems, it felt like a dream. Just a small startup back then. 20 people in a cramped office with mismatched chairs and big hopes. We were building something. Everyone said it. I started as a client coordinator. I stayed late, worked weekends, missed birthdays, school plays, doctor's appointments. Also, I could keep up, keep proving myself, keep earning just enough to survive. When Arlo's dad walked out, said fatherhood wasn't aligning with his path, whatever the hell that means, I doubled down. I didn't have time to feel sorry for myself. I had a kid to raise and bills to pay, so I worked harder. I moved up, became director of client relations by year 5. I had a team. I had clients who texted me photos of their kids, who trusted me, who asked for me by name. I wasn't just an employee. I was holding things together. And that didn't matter. The HR meeting broke something in me. I remember walking out of Mila's office like I was floating outside my body. I didn't feel my feet hit the floor. I didn't hear the usual Monday chaos around me. All I could hear was my own voice repeating, 60%, 60. Made it to my car, barely. I sat there in the cold underground garage, hands shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I didn't even call anyone. Who would I call? I couldn't tell my mom. She already worries too much. I couldn't tell Arlo. How do you explain to a 10-year-old that your job, the thing that keeps the lights on and the fridge full, just decided you weren't worth what they used to pay? So I just cried and cried the kind of crying that you feel in your bones, ugly, raw, mascara running down your face kind of crying. I slammed my hand against the steering wheel, screamed into the empty space, begged the universe to give me a break. Just one. I had given that company everything. My time, my energy, my health, my son's childhood, every client win, every fire put out, every late night email. I carried all of it. And the thanks I got was a pay cut so deep, it felt like a knife. It wasn't just money, it was the message behind it. You don't matter anymore. That's what it felt like. It didn't fire me. That would have been cleaner. No, they wanted me to keep doing everything I'd always done, but for a fraction of the pay. They wanted me to smile and nod and transition while they slowly erased the role I'd built with my own 2 hands. They weren't asking, they were telling me I was replaceable. And in that parking garage, somewhere between rage and despair, I hit my breaking point. Not because I couldn't take it anymore. Lord knows I've taken worse. But because I finally realized I shouldn't have to. When I first joined Stratic Systems, it wasn't even called that yet. We were just a scrappy little tech outfit operating out of a converted warehouse that still smelled faintly of paint and panic. 20 people, 1 coffee machine, 2 meeting rooms, ping pong table in the corner, bean bags everywhere, and a fridge full of LaCroix that never seemed to run out. We weren't just coworkers back then. We were believers in the product, the mission, each other. We stayed late, not because we were told to, but because we wanted to. We had something to prove. I was hired as a junior client manager, barely scraping by and completely out of my depth, but I learned fast. I listened. I solved problems before clients even knew they existed. Within a year, I was leading accounts twice my pay grade, Within 3, I was managing our top revenue contracts, clients who made up over 70% of our incoming business. By year 5, I was promoted to director of client success. I finally had a real office, well, a desk with walls, and a team of 8 brilliant, overworked humans I was fiercely protective of. I was proud, not of the title, but of what it meant. I'd earned trust. I'd earned respect. I'd earned stability, which after what I went through in my personal life was everything. When Arlo's dad left, no warning, just a note in a suitcase, I thought I was going to fall apart. But I couldn't. I had a toddler who needed inhalers and bedtime stories, and a mom who wasn't going to disappear like his father did. So I buried the heartbreak under task lists and spreadsheets. Work became my lifeline. There were months I could only afford groceries because of a client bonus. Nights I took Arlo to urgent care with a fever and still checked my Slack messages in the waiting room. There were birthdays I missed, playdates I forgot, science projects I helped with at 2 a.m. over a Red Bull. I promised myself it was temporary, that one day the sacrifice would be worth it. Then came the acquisition, or Marquetch Corporation. Big, shiny, and soul-crushing. I remember the all-hands meeting like a funeral in a conference room. Their CEO, some guy in an overpriced blazer named Russell Granger, stood next to our founder and talked about expanding synergy pipelines and leveraging cross-departmental efficiencies. I remember thinking, this is the beginning of the end. It didn't happen all at once. The first few weeks were just cosmetic. New email signatures, new workflow templates, more meetings with more people who knew nothing about our clients but had strong opinions about our metrics. But then the layoffs began. They didn't call them layoffs, of course. They said things like strategic realignment and resource optimization. They sent company-wide emails full of jargon and praise for hard decisions while quietly erasing the people who built the damn place. First, they took the junior analysts, then project managers, then one of my team leads. No warnings, just empty desks the next morning. My team of 8 shrunk to 5, then 4, eventually 3. But the client load, that didn't shrink. If anything, it grew. The same contracts, the same demanding accounts, the same revenue expectations, fewer people, more work. I started working 70-hour weeks again, waking up at 3 a.m. to reply to client emails in Japan, skipping every school event, every weekend, every family gathering. Arlo started asking why I looked so tired all the time, why I wasn't home for dinner anymore. But I kept going because I believed naively, stupidly, that I was still valuable, that the relationships I built would protect me. I mean, these weren't just accounts. These were people I'd known for years, clients who called me when their kids were sick, CTOs who sent me wedding invites. I knew their infrastructure better than they did. I helped them navigate mergers, product failures, leadership changes. I wasn't just managing relationships. I was the relationship. So when I saw Mila from HR's name pop up on my calendar for a quick sync, I didn't panic, not at first. And when I walked in and saw that other guy, Raymond something, Martechish regional restructuring consultant, already seated, I felt that small flutter of worry in my gut, the kind that makes your breath catch, but you ignore it because you want to believe you're safe. But I wasn't. They weren't just here to realign. They were here to erase. All that loyalty, all that sacrifice, all those nights I stayed awake trying to fix problems before they broke anything meant nothing to them. I wasn't a person. I was a line item, an expense to reduce. That was the moment the illusion shattered. And once it broke, there was no putting it back together. It was supposed to be a regular Monday. I had already had 2 calls with clients before 10 a.m., my third coffee in hand, when Mila from HR pinged me for a quick touch base. Harmless enough, until I walked into the room and saw him transporter. Slick gray suit, perfect hair, and that ridiculous gold watch he adjusted every time he spoke, as if the weight of it might slip off his wrist and fall into a moral compass he clearly didn't have. He smiled when I entered, all fake warmth and empty teeth. I felt my stomach twist. Jana, he said, using my full name. Nobody called me that at work. Thank you for making time today. Mila sat next to him, flipping open a folder with my name printed neatly across the top. Something about that little detail, the calm, clinical precision of it, made my pulse throb in my ears. We've been evaluating the new organizational structure post-acquisition, Dennis began, voice smooth like he practiced it in front of a mirror. And we believe there's an opportunity to better align your compensation with evolving market standards. There it was, better align, like they were doing me a favor. Mila slid the paper across the Kia desk. $54,000, 0 cents. I blinked. That couldn't be right. My previous salary had been $135,000, 0 cents. This wasn't a realignment. This was an ambush, a decapitation dressed up as strategy. Dennis kept talking as if he hadn't just lit a match and dropped it into my entire life. This reflects the changing nature of your role, he said. We're centralizing client strategy to the headquarters team. You'll be transitioning into a more regional support capacity moving forward. My mouth went dry. They were stripping my authority, my clients, my influence, and slashing my pay by more than half. But somehow I'd still be expected to carry the same weight. Same clients, same targets, same chaos, but now from the sidelines with a fake title and a fraction of my salary. I glanced at Mila. She wouldn't meet my eyes. And Dennis added cheerfully, you'll continue in your current role during the transition period, of course. Of course. Translation, train your replacement, tie a bow on your own demotion, smile through it so we can gut you cleanly. We'll need your response by tomorrow, Mila said quietly. If this new arrangement doesn't work for you, we understand, but we'll need to begin searching for someone better aligned with our structure. Aligned, again with that word. They weren't asking, they were telling me I could take this humiliation or walk away with nothing. And they were betting on the fact that I'd say yes, because they knew I had a mortgage and a kid with medical needs and no backup plan. It wasn't a negotiation, it was a bullet already chambered. I felt the pressure building in my chest, the heat in my throat, the sweat prickling behind my knees. I kept my hands folded on my lap so they wouldn't see the tremble in my fingers. I'll need 24 hours, I said finally. Dennis looked annoyed but nodded. Of course, he said. Let us know first thing. Mila looked relieved. She'd probably rehearsed for tears or yelling, but I gave them neither. I smiled. A perfect, robotic, corporate smile. The kind you wear when you're crumbling inside but still trying to seem reasonable. I stood up, gathered my folder, and walked out with my head high. I didn't remember walking back to my desk. I didn't remember packing my laptop or what excuse I mumbled to my team. I just remember the white noise in my head like someone had turned the world down to static. In the parking garage, I lost it. Hands shaking, heart racing, panic slamming through my ribs like a hammer. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could see was that number, $54,000, 0 cents. They thought that's what I was worth. After everything, after 9 years, after saving this company from losing millions during client crises, after holding this place together through every merger, every policy shift, every late night, they decided I wasn't worth a living wage. But they still needed my labor. They thought I'd be too desperate to say no. They thought I'd stay. And for one terrifying moment, I considered it, because that's what fear does. It makes you shrink, makes you play small, makes you question your own value. But something inside me snapped instead. Because this wasn't just about money. This was about power, about control, about humiliation disguised as strategy. And I knew then, clearer than I've ever known anything before, they were wrong about me. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fold. I wasn't going to burn the whole damn narrative they wrote for me. But first, I needed 24 hours. I don't know what made me pick up the phone. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was just the hope of hearing a familiar voice that didn't make me feel like I was suffocating in corporate bullshit. Either way, when I saw Kira's name flash across my screen, I answered. Hey, stranger. I tried to sound normal, like I wasn't still shaking from the meeting that had just cracked my world open. She said immediately, I've been trying to reach you all week. Have you checked your LinkedIn messages? No, I said, honestly. I've been busy falling apart in slow motion. Well, she said, her voice shifting into business mode. I'm at Nexus now, and my boss, Cameron Reed, has been asking about you a lot. He's looking for someone with your kind of experience. The timing might be perfect. I blinked. Nexus, as in Stratix's biggest competitor, Nexus? She laughed. Yeah, that one. Want to talk? I hesitated. I looked up at the Stratix building through the windshield, at the shiny new logo Martech had slapped over ours. I thought about Dennis and his fake smile, Mila and her downcast eyes. I thought about that number on the paper, 54K, and how they expected me to take it with a thank you and a nod. Actually, I said, I think tonight would be perfect. The second I got home, I checked Arlo, already asleep, inhaler on the nightstand like always. I kissed his forehead, promised him silently I'd fix this. Then I opened my laptop. I wasn't stupid. I knew what reaching out to the competition meant. It meant war. It meant I'd never be welcome back. But I also knew I had something Martech had overlooked. My clients trusted me, not just contracts, relationships. And I had the notes, not the official CRM entries. Those were theirs. But my personal files, 9 years of details. Who to call when a payment got stuck. Which IT directors had kids in high school. Who was unhappy. Who was ready to leave. It wasn't stealing. It was memory. It was work I poured myself into, and it was priceless. There was no non-compete clause in my contract. Stratix had never required one. Too small back then, too idealistic. And Martech never reissued new contracts to us legacy employees. Their mistake. At 9:30, I called Kira back. Can you set up a meeting with your boss tomorrow morning? I asked. Absolutely. You okay? No, but I know what I'm doing now. By 10 p.m., I was on the phone with Cameron Reed. Lena, he said, warm and confident. I've heard a lot about you from Kira. I'd like to meet first thing tomorrow. You free? Oh, I have to give Stratix an answer by 9 a.m., I said. Okay, let's talk before that. 7:30 at Westside Cafe. It's neutral ground. I'll be there. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on the couch staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything I'd given to a company that no longer cared, thinking about everything I stood to lose and everything I might gain, wondering if I was being impulsive, wondering if I was about to change everything. But by morning, the decision was made. I wore my best suit, the one I used for closing deals and surviving storms, hair done, makeup sharp, armor on. I dropped Arlo at school, hugged him tight. You okay, Mom? He asked, like he could see straight through me. I will be, I said, and for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The cafe was quiet at 7:30, a few early risers typing into laptops. Cameron was easy to spot. Expensive sweater, confident posture, silver at the temples. Kira waved me over. I took a deep breath and sat down. Lena Harper, Cameron said, standing to shake my hand. We've been waiting for you to call us. Something in me cracked at those words. I told him everything. The acquisition, the culture shift, the slow bleed of people, the impossible expectations, the pay cut, the insult. He listened, no interrupting, no corporate fluff. When I finished, he pushed a folder across the table. Inside, Senior Director of Strategic Partnerships, $170,000, 0 cents base salary, 30% annual bonus potential, full health coverage, including dependent care, stock options, signing bonus if I could start in 2 weeks. I stared at the number. It was $35,000, 0 cents more than I'd ever made. More than 3 times what Stratix was now offering me. Why? I asked. Why this much? Cameron didn't even blink. Because you're not just a client manager, Lena. You're a competitive advantage. Our research shows that clients you work with have a 92% retention rate. Industry average is 70%. And I've had 3 CTOs tell me directly that they stayed with Stratix because of you. I swallowed hard. You're not invisible here, he said. You're the value, and we know it. Something inside me settled. Something I didn't even realize had been shaking for years. I looked him in the eye and said, okay, I'm in. I walked into the conference room with calm, deliberate steps, every inch of me composed, steady, and dangerous. My signed offer letter from Nexus was in my bag, but I didn't take it out. Not yet. Dennis and Mila were already seated, waiting. The tennis stand, of course he didn't. Lena, he said, impatiently tapping a pen against his planner. Have you come to a decision? I nodded, lowering myself into the chair across from them. I folded my hands and looked them straight in the eye.
I have some questions first, I said. Mila blinked. Dennis raised an eyebrow. This really just needs a yes or no, he replied. I ignored him. Who will be managing the Capstone integration next month? And who's taking over the Henderson renewal? We'll be reallocating those accounts internally, he said with a tight smile. That's not something you need to worry about. I do need to worry, I replied evenly, because I promised Vanessa at Capstone I'd walk her team through implementation myself, and Bryce from Henderson explicitly asked for me to lead negotiations. Dennis leaned back. Those are company relationships, Lena, not personal ones.
So is it true, I asked, voice quiet but sharp, that you're moving all client services offshore within the next 8 months? The temperature in the room dropped. Mila stiffened. Dennis froze. Where did you hear that? He asked. People of color, so it's true.
That's confidential company strategy. I see, I said. So the 60% pay cut wasn't just an insult. It was a setup. You wanted me to train my replacement, then vanish, before you had to offer severance. Dennis's mouth twitched. This meeting is about your current offer, not hypothetical restructuring. I nodded slowly. Understood. I stood up, calmly collected my bag, and looked directly at them both.
I quit, effective immediately.
Mila looked stunned. Dennis scoffed. I'm afraid director-level employees are required to give 2 weeks' notice. No, I said. My original Stratix contract was never updated after the acquisition. It states that notice periods are equivalent to severance periods. Since Stratix never offered more than 1 week severance, that's my required notice. You're still expected to assist with client transitions. Actually, I said, pulling out a copy of my contract, there's a clause. Any compensation reduction over 15% waives all transition obligations. That clause was added after Trey Davidson threatened to hold his accounts hostage. I helped draft it. Dennis was turning a remarkable shade of red. Mila looked like she wanted to disappear into the carpet. You can't just walk away, he spat. You have responsibilities. Watch me. I turned to go, then paused at the door. Oh, and I've accepted a position with Nexus Technologies. Since neither Stratix nor Martech issued me a non-compete, I'll be starting on Monday. I didn't wait for his response. That afternoon, I called my top 5 clients. Not to poach, not to pitch, just to be honest. Vanessa, I told the Capstone CTO. As of today, I'm no longer with Stratix. Wait, what?
They've made some major changes. I just wanted you to hear it from me.
She paused. Do you have a new role? Yes, I said carefully. With Nexus. There was a beat of silence. Then, send me your new contact info. We need to talk. One by one, the calls went the same way. I didn't sell. I didn't suggest. But I didn't have to. Because relationships matter. Trust matters. And when someone you've relied on for years suddenly vanishes, you notice. That evening, my phone rang. A known number. This is Lena, I answered. This is Gerald Martech, came the voice on the other end. I understand we have a situation. That doesn't speak. I've heard what happened. I've also heard from 2 clients, Capstone and Henderson, expressing concern. They've both hinted at reevaluating their vendor relationships. Still, I said nothing. Are you actively soliciting our clients? He asked. No, I said calmly. I've simply let them know I'm no longer with the company. They've drawn their own conclusions. Dice must have told him something else. That's when I struck. Gerald, your regional VP, threatened to sue me for taking another job. It was a pause. He did. Yes. Despite knowing I had no non-compete, despite the 60% pay cut, despite the offshore transition plan he failed to disclose. Another long silence. I'd like to offer you your role back, he said finally. We can match the offer, add a bonus. I actually laughed. Now I'm valuable because it might cost you millions. Business is business, Miss Harper. No, I said. Business is people. You forgot that. And now you're bleeding trust. Goes back to then what do you want? Nothing. Just don't threaten the people still there and stop pretending loyalty is owed when respect is never given. And I hung up. Within a week, Vanessa from Capstone sent a termination notice to Stratix. Henderson followed, then 3 more. They weren't angry, they were strategic. They wanted consistency, they wanted someone they trusted. And they decided that person wasn't with Stratix anymore. It was with me. 3 days later, I walked into Nexus headquarters as their new senior director of strategic partnerships. I had my own office, a real one, with a door that closed and a nameplate that spelled my name right. Cameron introduced me to the team, people who actually listened when I spoke, who didn't measure my value in cuts and cost savings. They asked what I needed, what Arlo needed. I didn't know how to answer at first. No one had asked me that in years. Within 2 weeks, I made my first 2 hires, Maria and Devin, my old teammates from Stratix. They'd quit the day after I did, no hesitation, said it was the easiest decision they ever made. We picked up where we left off, only now we had support, we had space, we had each other. Big clients came too, slowly, naturally. Not because I asked, but because trust travels. They knew where I'd gone and they followed. 2 months later, I got a message from a friend still inside Stratix. Dennis Porter had left to pursue other opportunities. Mila had resigned. The offshore transition, quietly abandoned. Leadership had finally admitted they were bleeding accounts too fast to ignore. The company started restructuring again, but this time it was a cleanup, an apology no one said out loud. Meanwhile, Nexus was growing. My team had doubled. I made it home for dinner. I went to Arlo's soccer games, science fairs, parent-teacher meetings. I was present. One night, while we were watching TV, Arlo leaned against me and said, "You're not tired anymore." And I realized he was right.
This wasn't just a new job, it was a new life. One I had to fight for, one I chose.
They thought I would break, but all they did was wake me up. It's not about revenge. It never really was. It's about remembering my value. Something I forgot after years of surviving, sacrificing, shrinking myself just to keep a job that saw me as replaceable. Walking away wasn't easy. It was terrifying, but it was the first time in a long time that I chose me. If you've ever felt small, invisible, disposable, you're not. You matter. Your work, your time, your life have worth. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. If this story hit home, I'd love to hear yours. Drop it in the comments. You're not alone. And if you want more stories like this, real ones from people who fought back and found their power, subscribe. Because your worth doesn't live in a paycheck or a title. It lives in the courage to say, I deserve better. And sometimes all it takes is one decision to change everything.